I am ready to go. Let me just pull up my slide.
Yeah, you should have all the power you need. And so this is Lauren Townley. She's the chief of the Water Assessment and Implementation section at New York State DEC. And she's going to tell us about the water quality improvement projects and non-ag, non-point source planning funding that's right there in front of you on the slide. And anything new or exciting this year. And I'll let you take it away. Thank you
Sure.
again,
Thank
Lauren,
you
for
very
being
much
here.
for having me. Are you seeing the correct view? I'm not
Yes.
sure. I have multiple screens
Yes,
going.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So thanks for having me, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Lauren Townley. I'm a section chief with the DEC Division of Water. I'm based in the Albany office. And part of my section's responsibility is overseeing the procurement for the Water Quality Improvement Project grant program, also known as WQIP, and the Non-Agricultural Non-Point Source Planning and MS4 Mapping Grant, which we call NPG for short. So just wanted to give a little background in terms of both of the grant programs. So WQIP is a longstanding program. It's been in existence since 1997, and going back that far, in total, we've awarded over $1.7 billion worth of grants for water quality improvement. And the non-point source planning grant is a much newer grant program. So it started in 2019, and since then we've awarded a little over $9 million for planning efforts. And in total, between the two grants, it's over 2,000 grants that we've awarded. And I'm going to start with the planning grant. So we do encourage folks, if they are in the beginning stages of project implementation, to consider looking at the non-point source planning grant as a starting point. So again, there are two different types of options within this grant program. It is a competitive grant program that is available statewide, and it's split between planning reports, which are typically feasibility studies or other types of engineering reports that are required, but it runs the gamut in terms of planning report types. I'll go into those in a little bit more detail in a minute. And then the other aspect of the grant program is the MS4 stormwater system mapping. So that was added a couple of years ago to assist municipalities with meeting their MS4 mapping requirements. And we typically have about $3 million available per year. So we did award a full $3 million in 2024, and that was for 38 projects. And the majority of the funding, or the funding every year, is coming from the State Environmental Protection Fund. For the planning report types, municipalities or soil and water conservation districts are eligible, and we allow up to 5 applications per round for different projects. So 1 application per project, but up to 5 projects. And both grants that I'm going to talk about today are available under what's called the Consolidated Funding Application, or the CFA. It's an online portal that's managed by Empire State Development, and multiple agencies are within the umbrella of the Consolidated Funding Application. So the idea is that you can apply for multiple grants at the same time within one application portal. So it's typically released sometime in May, usually early to mid-May, and then open for applications through the end of July. And we expect for the 2025 round, we'll be on that same schedule. So for the planning report types, the amount available, the maximum available varies depending on the report type, but it's within the $50,000 to $75,000 range. And for this, we require 10% local match. So we have added the number of eligible report types over time. We've expanded it. So this is the list that was available in our past round in 2024. We expect that these would be available for the 2025 round, and there's potentially some additional ones that we're looking at adding as well. But again, there's a large range of what we could potentially fund. So it ranges from green infrastructure, stormwater retrofits, wetlands, floodplain, berm removal, a new planning report type that we added last year is brand new is the winter road maintenance plan. And this is to assist municipalities with planning use of road salt or switching over to road salt alternatives like brine. We also expanded the dam safety repair and rehabilitation plan to include dam removal. That was new last year. And then just to touch on the MS4 mapping, the eligible applicants for this are municipalities that are regulated by the MS4 permit or soil and water conservation districts that work on behalf of those regulated entities. We allow one application per round for this. And again, it's on that same schedule in terms of the CFA. The maximum available funding depends on if the application is for a single municipality or for multiple municipalities that are working together as a coalition. It does not have to be a formalized coalition. Essentially, what we're looking for is just an agreement. It could be through letters of support or a resolution. It doesn't have to be anything more formal than that in terms of coming in for the larger amount as a coalition. And this also has a 10% local match requirement. In terms of what we're looking for at the end of the MS4 mapping, it's a map product. So we're looking for essentially GIS, mapping of catch basins in particular. And we do prioritize applications that are coming in for multiple municipalities. Those are prioritized in terms of the scoring. We do fund advanced mapping. So there's a breakdown of what we consider basic, intermediate, and advanced mapping elements. Those are available on our website, but we just require that basic elements be completed before moving on to the intermediate or advanced elements. And then I'll just move over to WQIP. So like NPG, this is competitive statewide grants, and we're prioritizing projects that improve water quality or habitat, projects that promote flood risk reduction, restoration, climate resiliency, and protecting drinking water. The amount we have available does vary from year to year. It is based on the state budget. We have multiple funding sources that we pull from, primarily state funding, but we do utilize some federal funding as well. But we're utilizing Clean Water Infrastructure Act funding, Environmental Protection Funding Act, Environmental Protection Fund funding, as well as the Environmental Bond Act. So the 2022 Environmental Bond Act funding. Last year was the first year that we utilized some funding for that. So we funded 50 projects with Bond Act funding last year. So we're still waiting on the state budget in terms of how much will be available. We did award over 220 million last year though. And just a snapshot of some information. Eligible applicants does vary depending on the project type. Primarily municipalities and soil and water conservation districts are eligible. We do allow not-for-profits to apply for certain categories. Those are the land acquisition, the dam safety, and then our habitat restoration categories. WQIP is also available in the CFA, and the maximum funding varies depending on the project type. So maximum could be 100,000 for a non-point source project, up to 15 million for wastewater. And there is a 25% match requirement. Match can be from either local or federal sources. There are a few cases where we cannot accept federal match, but the majority of it could be matched with federal funds. So last year we had 9 different category types that range the gamut. Our water quality project types included wastewater, non-point source, back trucks for MS4s, land acquisition, salt storage, and dam safety. And then we also partner with our Division of Fish and Wildlife and Division of Marine Resources. So for Fish and Wildlife, they oversee the aquatic connectivity and the Fish and Wildlife habitat restoration categories. And then for the Marine District, which is primarily limited to just Long Island and portions of Westchester. That's under our Division of Marine Resources. So I'm just going to run through each of those project types really quickly. The biggest category where we have the most funding available is our wastewater treatment improvement category. We do have some primary, secondary, and priority project types that are under this category. So I'll run through them really quickly. One is disinfection projects for wastewater treatment facilities that have disinfection requirements in their permits. We've also increased the priority for watershed implementation plan for phosphorus reduction projects. The secondary priority in the past has been CSO or SSO projects, as well as implementation plan projects that are not phosphorus. So that's primarily our nitrogen projects. And then our tertiary priority has been connection of properties that have failing on-site septics, so sewer expansion projects essentially. And then we have a general projects category that sort of encompasses everything else that doesn't fit into one of those priority categories. Those are all eligible. They're just, in terms of our scoring, usually receive a lower score. We do only fund projects in this category that are ready for implementation. So just wanted to make a plug. If a project requires planning and you're not at the stage of needing or being ready for implementation, our partners at the Environmental Facilities Corporation have a separate grant called the Engineering Planning Grant. It's actually open for applications right now and will be open through July or April 11th. And that can fund the engineering report that is required for either their funding or for the WQIP funding. We also have our non-agricultural, non-point source abatement and control category. There's a long list of projects here in terms of practices that we do fund under the non-point source category. Municipalities and soil and water conservation districts are eligible to apply for this category. And just want to make a note that we have included programs as a separate kind of eligible project type. And that's essentially just implementation of multiple sites for a particular practice. So if it's a countywide road ditch maintenance program, we can fund that under the programs category. Otherwise, the rest of the practices are just a discrete location that's already been identified. And then vac trucks for MS4 areas. So this is limited to municipalities that are regulated by the MS4 permit, or districts could apply on behalf of a municipality. And this is to purchase a vac truck to essentially keep up with the maintenance of catch basin cleaning. One of the requirements to receive a vac truck is that you have basic stormwater mapping completed. And so we just make a plug for, if that has not been completed, come to the NPG grant first, get your mapping done, and then you could be eligible for the vac truck. So for land acquisition, this is a category specifically for source water protection. Municipalities, districts, and not-for-profits are eligible for this. And this is primarily for protection of either surface or groundwater drinking water supplies. And it includes either land purchase, direct purchase of parcels, or easements are also eligible. The next category, so this is an expanded category. We did expand it last year. We've been funding salt storages for a number of years, but last year was the first year where we included road salt reduction practices as part of this category. So municipalities and districts can apply. The focus has been covering salt and salt sand mixture piles that have no protection. They're completely uncovered and are in close proximity to drinking water. We do fund the replacement or expansion of existing storages, but those are a lower priority compared to completely uncovered piles. And then for the road salt reduction practices, we have a list of different practices that are eligible, including brine making equipment, retrofitting of plows, including live edge and segmented plow blades, plow guards, truck mounted brine spreading equipment, and then GPS sensors as well. So that was brand new last year. And then the next project type is our dam safety repair and removal category. So we expanded this last year to include the removal option, and municipalities and not-for-profits are eligible for this. The priority is repair or removal of high hazard dams that have either an unsafe or an unsound rating. So our staff at DEC will give that type of rating to the dams based on their condition. We do fund repair of intermediate hazard dams as well that have that same condition rating, and then have a general project category for any other dam that does not have either an unsafe or an unsound rating. And this category has exclusively been funded with the Bond Act funding. So this was new and added just within the last couple of rounds. And then I'll get into our habitat categories. So we have aquatic connectivity restoration, municipalities, districts, not-for-profits are eligible. And this is a category that's focused on improving aquatic connectivity, removing barriers to fish and wildlife movement within streams and rivers. And the projects can range from upgrades of culverts or bridges or removal of impoundments that are preventing that connectivity. If there are projects that might serve multiple purposes in terms of either providing both connectivity as well as erosion control. If there hasn't been a connection to a connectivity issue, we would just encourage that folks apply under the non-point source category. That is really focused on if there's an erosion issue, it could be documented with photographs. It could be funded under the non-point source category. This is really related to if there's been a NAC assessment and it's showing that there's a barrier, that would be a good fit for this category. And I won't spend too much time on marine district because that's a very limited part of the state where it's eligible. But again, it's just an option for projects on Long Island and parts of Westchester related to improvement of fish and wildlife habitat. And then a brand new category last year, again, this was funded with our Bond Act funding, was the fish and wildlife habitat restoration and protection category. So for this, it's enhancement of impaired, degraded, or marginal fish and wildlife habitat. And the two options for project types were either wetland restoration or riparian corridor restoration or enhancement. And municipalities, districts, and not-for-profits are eligible for this category. And I just want to go over a couple different application resources. A lot of this information is still available on our website as well. We keep everything available in between rounds just so that folks can utilize some of these resources. But one aspect is that we do encourage people to start applications as early as possible when it opens in May. If you have questions, you can reach out to us. You'd be surprised how many folks apply on the last day at the last minute. We get timestamps on when the applications come in, and it is kind of insane how many people really, it comes down to the wire within a couple of seconds of when the system closes. So we just encourage people to apply as early as possible. If you run into issues, we can assist. If there's technical issues on the system side, we can put you in touch with Empire State Development staff that can help with that difficulty. But if it's done at the last minute, there's no guarantee that we'd be able to assist with any technical difficulties. We also encourage that folks read the whole program overview. We try to consolidate the information that is super relevant to each project type within its section, but there is information throughout the document that is relevant to all the projects. One thing that we really encourage folks to also check is to make sure that all your attachments are correct. The CFA system is not what I would call super smart. It's not going to flag things for you if they're missing. And if something is submitted to us and is missing information or has not been attached, we are not able to reach back out to tell you that something is missing. So just double checking that everything is there when you submit your application is critical. And again, you know, this is a primarily water quality program other than the habitat categories. So making the connection between either the water quality protection or restoration or the benefits to habitat is important with the application. And another thing that we do recommend that folks take a look at is looking at self-scoring your application. So we include in our program overview our full scoring matrix, so you can see how we are prioritizing projects. And essentially you could just look at your application type, look at the scoring criteria, and make adjustments to your application based on that prioritization in the scoring matrix. And this is just a plug for the state financial system. We have moved all of our contracts into the state financial system as of last year. And so municipalities and districts that are accepting grant awards will have to be registered in the statewide financial system if they aren't already. A lot of folks are registered, so it's not a problem. You don't have to re-register. But if you aren't, now's a good time to get set up in that system. As well, for on the not-for-profit side, they have to also be registered and pre-qualify in that system. And just a note on some technical assistance that's available. So a couple of years ago, as a governor's initiative, the community assistance team was formed, and DEC Division of Water participates as one of the member agencies under the community assistance team. So this is coordinated by the Environmental Facilities Corporation, but essentially they bring together multiple agencies that are responsible for funding primarily water quality projects or infrastructure funding. And that includes, so EFC is represented, DEC, Department of State, Department of Health, and Homes and Community Renewal. Occasionally, we will pull in other agencies that are involved in funding as well. And essentially, municipalities or other partners could request a consultation. We set up a meeting. If you have no idea which program, there's so many different grant programs available at the state level right now. If you're not even sure where to get started, we recommend a consultation. And essentially, you'll get a representative from all these agencies. We can go through the potential project and direct you to where we feel like the funding would best be suited for that project. We go over requirements under the different programs and again, make those connections. So there's a QR code on this slide where you can actually go right to EFC's website and fill out a consultation form. Otherwise, you can email them directly at this email or call them. We also have monthly Q&A sessions as part of this community assistance team, where if you just have questions about any of the grant programs, we're available to answer questions. We do workshops on a pretty regular basis around the state, where we will present on all the different grant programs as well. And here's a couple more QR codes. We love our QR codes. So there's one for each of the grant programs. And as I mentioned, all of our resources are still available from the last round. We'll keep them up until they're updated in May for the release of the new round. And that's it for me. I just want to, you can email me directly if you have questions. Otherwise, my team has a general contact email. That's dowgrants@dec.ny.gov. And we are all monitoring that, so you'll get responses fairly quickly if you email us at that email. But thank you very much for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Do folks have any questions for Lauren? I have one. So you said that if you submit your application and you forgot to attach something, um, you guys can't let us know. Can we call and confirm that it was received and is complete?
We do not receive the applications until after the system closes. But there is a contact for the CFA program at ESD. So that would be my recommendation, is that you could email that program email. They would be able to like let you know if it's been submitted. You should be able to view anything as you've submitted it. You can clone an application as well if something went through and you need to take it back. That is an option, I believe, in the system. And you do get an email confirmation when it has been submitted if the system accepts it. So if you don't get that email, then something might have happened. So there is a built-in kind of notification there too.
I have to submit proficiency test results to the State Department of Health twice a year. And I usually call afterwards to make sure they were there because I'm just a nervous Nelly.
It's always good to check.
Yeah. Let's see. And then you mentioned that last round, the fish and wildlife habitat restoration, I think you said it was focused on like a couple specific habitat types.
Yes. Yeah. Last year it was just wetlands and riparian corridor restoration.
And I've got to follow up with that. Sorry, Roxy. Does it have to be on municipal land or could it be on
Nope,
privately
it can
on
be on
land?
private. Yep.
Okay.
As long as there's, again, like a landowner agreement, if there's an endorsement letter from a landowner. But yes, it could be on private land.
So do you anticipate a change in that or expansion, or do you know?
In that particular category, I don't know at this point whether it's going to be expanded. We are meeting with the Division of Fish and Wildlife to go over changes for next year. So I'm not really sure at this point whether or not they're going to add additional types of habitat.
Okay. Okay. And this is a silly question that all the grant writers already know the answer to, but this being registered for the statewide financial system, if you are already able to submit through the CFA, does that mean that you're already registered? No, Darby says no.
No, yeah, totally different systems. So yeah, unfortunately, you would have to register separately. But if you have accepted any type of grant award recently from either DEC or another agency, you're likely registered already. But it was a transition, at least for DEC. We were one of the last agencies to move over to SFS. So
And it's a tricky system that it has to be like, for us, it's at the county, it's the finance director has to then give individual people the right designation. Like I can review contracts, but I can't sign them or whatever. So it's like for you, Roxy, it'd be like the city probably has one administrator and then you have to be part of it. But
Oh man,
yeah, you can't just go in as Roxy Johnston and just register. You have to be assigned a role.
super duper.
It's a fun one.
Okay,
took me about a month to get through my own bureaucracy to get that.
So that's
yes,
really
that's
important.
do it now before everything opens is probably a smart thing, just because it does take some back and forth to get it all set up.
So we often don't think about this until it comes time to write the grant, but CWIO is not a municipal entity, nor are we soil and water, or are we a not-for-profit. We have to work through our member municipalities to hold grants. So make sure that you are all signed up for the statewide financial system and the grants management system. so that, you know, when we need to get you a grant, we can do it. And do we find that? Where do we find that? Just Google that up,
There's a
or?
yeah, there's a website. I can follow up with a link to it.
Okay, that'd
Yep.
be great.
And I can definitely share these slides as well.
Yes, please. I was going to ask that. We like to post these so that people can watch it later if they were unable to attend the meeting. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I have a quick question, Lauren, not to put you on the spot, but it comes up a bit in conversations with folks in the Cayuga watershed. There are 1, 2, maybe 3 water bodies that may benefit from some sort of dredging. Can you talk a little bit about how the NPG and WQIP kind of work together on evaluating the need for and potentially funding dredging projects?
Yeah, sure. So dredging is an eligible practice it's under the non-point source category, and it's under in water body controls for nutrients. So it's eligible under WQIP. One of the requirements is that there has to be a study essentially demonstrating that dredging would help with a nutrient issue. And that's a requirement to apply for the WQIP funding. So what we do recommend, that is an eligible plan type under the non-point source planning grant. So we would recommend folks start with the non-point source planning grant first, get that study completed, and then you would be eligible to apply for potentially the funding for dredging under WQIP.
What is what's the limit on that amount of funding for a project?
For the planning report for that, or the
The
implementation?
dredging, the actual dredging, yeah.
That's a good question. I believe it's $1 million. I could look it up really quickly.
So those are very, very small projects. I mean, okay, we have a very small reservoir, but it'd be like 25 million to do the dredging.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's our non-point source category, I think caps at 5 million total, but then each project type has a slightly different cap as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have maybe an obscure one, but does the REDC, do they score these projects, either one, WQIP or NPG?
That's a great question. They used to score WQIP, they no longer do. And they have never scored NPG. So
Yeah.
we do participate in as part of the rollout of the CFA, the REDCs will host workshops. And so we do participate in those workshops, even though they don't score as part of our program anymore.
So my follow-up to that is it possible to remove the couple questions about the REDC on the questions? Because the first year we applied for the NPG, I spent a lot of time and got a lot of input from someone who had been on our REDC. And then I think somewhere I saw that I don't think they scored it. And I was like, wow, that was a really bad waste of my time. So I don't know if there's a way to take that off. I then cloned it for the next year, but I don't know if there's a way to remove that or not give it many points or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the way that the CFA works is that there's a set of questions that are set by ESD that we have no control over, and they are required for every program in the CFA, and the REDC questions are part of those. I will say, I mean, that's a great that you cloned it, so you don't have to worry about it. When folks ask, we just tell them don't spend too much time on them especially if you're only applying for WQIP or NPG, because we will not review those questions as part of our application review.
So you could leave them blank?
I don't know if it probably won't let you submit if they're blank, but again, like if you put something in there short and sweet, then you'll be fine. So
not applicable.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I got some language for Tompkins County if anybody needs it. So
okay. That's all great. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Lauren? Okay. Well, thank you again. And yeah, please, if you could just send the slides and then the link for how to get your municipality signed up, or
Yeah.
or Soil and Waters, whomever nonprofits that need to get signed up. That would be very helpful. We'll get that shared.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again. And
Yeah.
if folks have questions, feel free to reach out to me, especially when it's released in May.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Night. All right, let's do our head count again.